Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fandomology, where fandoms collide. Let me bring my microphone in just a little bit closer, and let me see if I can get this camera focused here. But anyways, welcome back, and we are having another discussion stream tonight. So before we go ahead and do this, I do want to, again, reiterate the rules to everyone. In fact, I just realized I didn't put them in the description, so let me fix that. So the reason we're once again reiterating the rules is because we had a bit of an incident last time. For those that were missed it last time, we had an incident where someone came in and decided that they were going to be funny and just pop off right off the bat with some racial slurs, and I have no patience for any of that. And so we're not going to have that tonight. And so just to reiterate what the rules are, let me read them off again for you. Number 1, no malicious jabs and insults directed at the host or other panelists will be tolerated. And yes, that includes what happened last time we did this. All panelists are required to wear some form of headphones or earbuds. All background noise must be kept to an absolute minimum. This includes any TVs, computers, other people talking, etc. If the stream is about a certain topic, only join the panel if you have something to contribute to the discussion. All panelists must refrain from talking over other panelists so that we can keep the conversation going at a good pace. If you leave the stream for any reason, please let me know, however possible. And if it is a temporary departure, please mute yourself and turn off your camera. Failure to comply with these rules will result in the following. First offense will receive a verbal warning from the host. Second offense will be temporarily removed from the panel for 5 minutes. Third offense, you'll get removed completely. And if you commit the third offense in 2 streams, you will not be welcome back. So we're all on the same page here. I am going to go ahead and put the link to join in the chat. I am going to do something a little bit different this time, though. If you are someone that I have never seen before, I will not immediately bring you onto the panel. I will instead be messaging you in the private chat here in StreamYard so I can figure out who you are and, of course, whether or not you're here to actually contribute or whether you're here to cause chaos. And not the type of chaos that Phil causes. That's one thing. All right, so now that we got the serious stuff out of the way, the link to join has been posted, and that's going to get put in the pinned comments. We are talking tonight, and I got to shout out Virginia because she actually came up with a long list of ideas to cover for these discussion streams, and this is one we're going to be doing tonight from that list. And she talks what makes a good battle scene and why do we root for one side. And Jet Sparks, by the way, hello. He says, small move. Do you mean smart, or was that a typo, Jet Sparks, or did you actually mean small? And what does that mean? But anyways, we're talking what makes a good battle scene. And this is kind of in flow with what we had last time around with talking about Return of the King, where we're building up, of course, to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. And JetSpark says, yeah, I actually meant smart move on the rules there because that was weird what happened last time. Thank you, man. So this coming Monday, we'll, of course, be back with talking about Return of the King, and we will likely be talking about the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. And so, in order, I guess, to prepare for that, I decided to go ahead and choose this topic because there is so many different amazing battle scenes out there in cinema. The Pelennor Fields, of course, just being one example. Other great examples, and this isn't just limited to 2 armies in a field. Other great examples are, say, the Battle of Hoth, the Battle of Endor, the Battle of Yavin. Let's see, outside of Star Wars, of course, there's the Battle of Arrakean, both from the 1984 and Dune Part 2. And let's see, there's Battle of Helm's Deep, the Battle of the Five Armies, a lot of great battle scenes, and I'm sure some that I'm not aware of, or some that I'm not thinking of. So let's look at those and see what it is that makes those great and why we choose to root for one side. So like I said, guys, the link to join is here. So come on in whenever you guys are ready. So I think in order, at least for me, to talk about what makes these battle scenes great, you got to look up, to me, an important aspect is what's the story around that battle? Like, why is this battle happening? Blazerhawk Darren saying Battle of the Network Stars. Okay. So why is this battle happening? Because battles rarely ever happen, for at least in cinema that I've seen, for two different people being like, hey, my army's stronger than your army, let's prove it. That's never what happens. There's usually some form of reason behind why the battle has to happen. And real quick, we have our first guest. He is a regular on these open panels. What's up, Glenn?
How we doing there, Paul?
Doing well. You got your earbuds with you?
I got one in my ear. I'm
Okay.
out on my porch.
Okay, so that's good. JetSparks asks, do air battles in Independence Day or Top Gun count? Yes. And I'm even going to go one further and say one-on-one fights count too. Any fight scene / battle scene is fair game here. So how you doing today, Glenn?
Pretty good. Hold on a second. I got a technical difficulty here.
Also, Phil, get jealous. But anyways, what I was talking about, Glenn, before you came on, is in order to understand what makes a good battle scene, it's important, in my opinion at least, to understand what's going on that causes the battle to happen. Would you say that's accurate?
Hold on just a second.
Okay. All right, we're gonna mute him for just a quick second. That way we don't hear that. Sorry about that. I was chuckling at something Virginia sent. But yeah, like I said, it's important to understand why the battle is happening. So, for example, in Star Wars, why does the Battle of Yavin happen? Because, of course, the Empire with the Death Star is encroaching on the base. All good, Glenn? Glenn, is everything okay?
Yeah, just having trouble with my earbuds here.
I gotcha. All right, well, just remember, dude, if you have to get up, please let me, and please turn your camera off and mute yourself, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. So, like I was saying, it's important to understand for these battles why they're happening, what events lead up to these battles. So again, going back to Star Wars, the Battle of Yavin, you've got the Empire with the Death Star that have figured out where the Rebel base is by this point, and they're about to show up on Yavin 4 and blow it away, and the Rebels would be destroyed. Meanwhile, the Rebellion by now have seen the plans for the weakness in the Death Star, and they decide to defend themselves. Or say, for example, the Battle of Helm's Deep, where you've got the forces of evil, led by, of course, Saruman and his Uruk-hai, that are tasked with wiping out the world of men on behalf of Sauron. And so, in order to keep his people safe, Theoden relocates everyone to Helm's Deep, and of course, the enemies show up there. So Glenn, what are some of your favorite battle scenes in movies, and can you kind of walk me through the events leading up to them?
Well, battle scene. I'd have to go with one of my top favorites being Anakin versus Ben Kenobi. Well, Obi-Wan on Episode 3 in Mustafar,
Okay.
where Anakin's basically gone to the dark side and under Palpatine's control and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What led up to that? Him basically thinking that he was manipulated. He was turned
Since
to the.
real quick, since you brought this up, I gotta, of course, get this out and remind everyone of this. Give me a second. But keep here. I'll mute myself while I get the sound set up. You keep going.
Well, when it comes to like where it's set up at, I don't know if I remember, I was like jealousy or something like that. What happened with Padme not joining his side also corrupted him, and like he said on Mustafar, if he wasn't with him, he was an enemy. So
Exactly. Real quick, I want to say hello to Alan Copeland. Thanks for joining. Blazerhawk Darren says, depending on how it's going here, I might join after dinner. Now, the reason I grabbed this, Glenn, is to show you. I don't think you've seen me do this, Glenn. So this is my evil Anakin sound font on here. Listen closely to what happens if I hit the clash button. Do you hear the kids screaming?
mm-hmm.
And yes, also, because I don't know if he's watching. Give me a second.
Why are my earbuds not working?
I gotta do this sound too, in case Kobe's listening. But yeah, Kobe, this one's for you. The death of Tuscans.
If you would hold on a second, I'm gonna have to probably leave and get back in here because I think my earbuds aren't working.
That's fine, man. Do what you gotta do. So, speaking of Kobe, by the way, I am going to go ahead and take this opportunity. He had sent me actually a voice recording of himself to play, and we're going to go ahead and play that. Now, I've never done this before through YouTube. I wanted to try and download this and play it directly through StreamYard, but we'll see what happens here. So, share audio. So, this is what Kobe says. Keep in mind, this is about 4.5 minutes.
Honestly, the thing that makes Battle Scene worth notable is the fact
Let
that
me know if y'all can hear it.
in some of them they have emotions running high on them. Like in my favorite not episode, entry of the Star Wars franchise, Revenge of the Sith, the final battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin is one of the best battles to ever hit the silver screen. It's because we know the fate that Anakin goes through, and seeing these two former friends fight it out to see how Anakin ends up the way is just terrifying. It's just really sad and just really heartbreaking to see he actually put the screen in basically how he ended up looking like that basically. So yeah, there's that. But in recent times, my favorite final battle has got to be in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Now, with Infinity War, we know that in the end, Thanos ends up winning, but for the most part, we're tricked into thinking that he'll somehow pull through and the Avengers will pull through and get the victory over the Mad Titan. And that's actually indicated in a scene where Wanda is in the middle of destroying Vision's memory Mind Stone, and what happens is that while she's destroying the Mind Stone, and the fact that she's holding Thanos off with her other hand, if you listen to the music very carefully, it has a very triumphant note to it, which can be very misleading at some points. So it's best to keep note of listen to music at that time, because whether that's basically a triumphant note or a depressing note is how you know how the tide of the battle is going. And what's genius about that is because we do see Wanda eventually destroy the Mind Stone, and we think they've won, but us, the audience who have paid attention to the previous battle with Thanos on Titan is that he got the time stone, and then we realized at that moment that no matter what the outcome was, Thanos was just going to rewind time in his favor. And in the end, it just ended up that the heroes lost. Now with Endgame, we ended up with something similar to that, but this time we saw that all the heroes that were in the Avengers facility got either trapped or are stuck fighting Thanos, which will be the head three: Thor, Cap, and Iron Man. Now, Thor and Iron Man are KO'd for the moment, and Cap is on his last leg because for a moment he wielded Thor's hammer Mjolnir, and for a moment actually held his own against Thanos. But then when Thanos broke his shield and his army came through, it looked like all hope was lost. But despite all that, Cap was going to go out fighting, and we see that when he tightens the strap on his shield, because I don't know if that was like a trick of the camera, but it looked like his arm was broken at the time. So yeah, and then when the portal started to open with Doctor Strange and Black Panther and all the other heroes that got snapped out of existence, and the brilliant score by Ellen Silvestri's Portals definitely shows that the tide of battle was turning in a massive, massive way, and that was just really exciting to see in theaters. And I think part of the reason in that some battle scenes work is either the emotions, the stakes, and of course the music. Because if you understand the stakes of the fight, like how the outcome might end up, that's what makes a great battle scene, whether the hero loses or the villain loses. But I think what makes the battle scenes that much epic is because when you root for either side, it's the knowledge you have that either side might have a ace in the hole or a trick up their sleeve, that kind of thing, and it's just a matter of expecting the unexpected. So I think that's what makes a great battle scene, and it should be worth noting in that it's just all for entertainment. Like some fights will end in one way, others will end in another, but the important thing is to understand the stakes, the emotions, and basically what each side has in their favor that could turn the tide of the fight in general. That's all I got to say on the what makes a battle so great. So I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry if I started a bit or got off topic a bit, but I hope this is helpful and insightful in some ways. So have fun with that if you will.
And have fun with that. We will indeed, Kobe. Thank you for providing that voice clip for us. And by the way, those of you guys that are in the chat, give Kobe, if he's watching right now, give Kobe some support. He's going to be joining me this coming Wednesday for a beginner series on RWBY. Yes, I'm still going to be saying it like that, Trevor and Virginia. You can't stop me. But anyways, Glenn, you can go ahead and unmute now. So first off, how much of that did you hear? Were you able to hear it start to finish, or did you kind of come in the middle?
I came in the middle because some reason my earbuds is just like I had to like I had to reset my phone, re-put connected to the Bluetooth. But I heard they were talking about the Thanos and stuff and how that battle went.
Yeah, I mean those are obviously great examples right there. Honestly, the big battle scenes in the MCU, and I'm talking like peak MCU from Iron Man 1 to Endgame, all of those are great examples of battle scenes. He did, by the way, I don't believe you heard this part, he did also back you up on bringing up Obi-Wan versus Anakin. And again, the lead up to that fight, these two former brothers in all but blood that have literally fought side by side with each other through a brutal conflict, now having to fight each other because one of them got corrupted and manipulated by an evil entity. So, having said all of that, let's go into what it is in battle scenes that have to be put in there for it to be a good battle scene. And I think the most obvious one right off the bat is the battle scene. I don't have notes for these, but I'm going to make notes for these as we go through. But the battle scene has to look cool. And yes, from a story perspective, this might be the least important one, but come on. we're talking cinema, and what you're seeing on the screen or in the video game, for example, because we'll include some of those too. You have to be drawn in visually by what you're seeing, because think about it. If you've got this amazing build up to a battle scene, and you've got this and you've got this one side that you're rooting for to win no matter what, and you get there and the battle scene just kind of falls flat visually, I mean, are you really enjoying it?
Yeah, that's the point there. You gotta stay with the theme. You can't be like, yeah, it can't be like, okay, this is gonna, it's gonna do this, and you're gonna have a bunch of casualties. Then it just falls at the end. And I just have one more question.
Mhm.
Uh, I have earbuds in. Is it okay if I have just one in, or do you want me to have both of them
One is fine as long as I'm not getting any nosebleed.
in? Okay, because I'm on the porch, so that's the only reason why I asked.
Okay. Don't
Can
be.
you hear?
Yeah,
Do
I
you
can
hear
still
any?
hear you. I do hear the
Can
bird,
you?
but
No.
it's all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So, turn you down a little bit. So, like I said, at a minimum, the battle has to look cool, especially for cinema and video games. And again, battles that look cool, Battle of Helm's Deep, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, what Kobe mentioned earlier, Infinity War and Endgame were his two examples. And then
I'll bring up a. I'll bring up another game, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. There's a bunch of good battles in there, like the Yellow Turban Rebellion.
mm-hmm.
And they have the Wu Wei and Shu. There are many. Some battles also are rivalries, like even Pokemon, for example.
Yeah, technically those count. Real quick, we got another guest coming in here. He's another regular. Jet Sparks, how's it going, bud?
I'm good. Hello, Paul. Hello, Kershi.
Hello.
Awesome.
So, Jet Sparks, your input on this one's going to be especially interesting, considering that you are also a writer. So, in your opinion, what to you makes a good battle scene?
More or less, I would say it's the emotion that, especially if the character is fighting to defend somebody, that person has to be determined. And in the case of the antagonist, like I already have something set up in a final battle scene where there's a lot of emotion that my character has pent up. There's so much that he's caused, and there's so many revelations that my character found out about the main villain. Is that you knew somebody close to me, and you killed them, stuff like that. And the villain is doing everything he can to psychologically mess up my hero, and literally goading him to lash out at him. And if he's lashing out, he's not focused, he's being random. And literally that's something that a villain could use to exploit in terms of like a one-on-one fight. And even then, some of the fight scenes when I go into my second book of my superhero story is that there's going to be a lot of like things where they're fighting a bunch of like cannon fodder mooks, essentially.
Right.
So it's really something that these characters really kind of go, you really like when you just look at any sort of like fight scene against like any foot soldiers and Power Rangers and visualize it in that way. And they use the more sophisticated martial arts. They use their own powers, tactics to fight back. And even there are times where they're kind of somewhat outnumbered, and they have to be more resourceful at times, just trying to avoid conflict or be more on the defensive. And I say, at least in terms of that, it's always a bigger thing. And I know in any type of way that there is a fight scene, I know the characters are where I often think the characters have gone through a lot of danger where they've had to stay low in a fight, and now that they're active, now they're back at full strength, they're giving in a final battle. The characters are any of the my main characters are giving it their all. They're fighting tooth and nail, knowing what's at stake here in this fight.
Right.
They know if they fail, their families, their friends, in fact, the entire world will die with them if they fail. If the bad guys kill them, then the world is essentially doomed.
Okay. Yeah, all of that definitely sounds interesting, and I want to see all of this in your story when it's finished. So the first points that I had brought up was, in fact, let me real quick write the bullet point here. How important to you is the build up to the fight? Because one of the first things I had said was, in order for there to be a good battle scene, there has to be a good reason for the battle to happen, because no armies are going to be like, I hate you, let's fight, and just that be it.
Yeah, it's not like that. A good example, at least from what I can think of, at least in Independence Day, is that, assuming that, but you're gonna mixing up a little bit of headcanon here. When Stephen Hiller downs one of the harvester attackers and actually captures its pilots, most likely if the aliens had the means to track one of their own craft, most likely that's where that's one of the city destroyer that heads straight for Area 51. Most likely it was going there to attack them because the humans somehow managed to down one of their own fighters. And I think originally in the lore, I think that ship was originally heading straight for Las Vegas instead, but it changed course knowing that it was happening. And we already know that the air battle was counting on the idea that they needed to code the virus and get it inside the mothership so they can have a chance to actually take it down. So there is some decent buildup, and not to mention that the last ditch effort to destroy one of the city destroyers was drop a nickel nuke on it, and it obviously did nothing because the shield was still up.
Well, that's a good example right there. And then the other bullet point that I had brought up before you came on, the battle scene has to look cool. What does this one mean to you?
I definitely mean, yeah, sometimes you can make things feel a little flashy. Use like if it's an on the ground battle, you have to make it flashy. Either one side is pushing forward or the other one is fighting more defensively. But if they're using some more unconventional tactics, like, run to one side, try to flank them, stuff like that, or, anyone tries to use some sort of team up attack, or just using the environment to their advantage in any fight, which can really make any type of, if it's like a full on war scene, that like the latter I said that, but if it's just one-on-one, if it's like a massive like sort of street brawl, using the heroes or the people using the environment to their advantage is interesting. But if you're going to see the villain absolutely dominate and actually show that he's a threat, that he or she is a threat, you have to make it seem like the character, like the villain can just walk through every person who's charging right at them and basically knock them down like there's with no effort. Essentially,
and real quick, Glenn, before you go, it's funny that you bring that one up, Jet Sparks, because that's actually touching on my next bullet point here. And I put this one, but I also realized there's some exceptions to it, but I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up. The fight can't be too one-sided. Now, like I said, there's some exceptions to that. For example, everyone loves the Rogue One hallway scene with Vader. That is, in my opinion, an example of a one-sided battle scene that's good, because it's basically establishing Vader as this more than a man. He's a force of nature that should be feared by the rebellion. So, Glenn, what were you gonna say, bud?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Back to Romance of the Three Kingdoms / Dynasty Warriors. There was a army tyrant by the name of Dong Zhuo, and one of his like most feared officers was a guy by the name of Lu Bu. This dude,
Time out. Why do they have weird names?
it's ancient China.
Oh,
It's
okay, fine, fair enough. Sorry for anyone
so
of that descent.
so Lu Bu is this tyrant of sorts that was a part of Dong Zhuo's army. He is basically walking tank. He was one of the most feared soldiers. Uh, it's one thing in battles also is presence. Like if you're the most feared warrior, like Lu Bu was, everybody, soldiers included, they're like, "Oh, it's Lu Bu," and they're like, "Oh no!" And it it's like when he came into the scene and whomever's fighting Dong Zhuo's army, Lu Bu is just knocking them senseless, getting them out of the way, and is basically a walking freight train, as per se, just blowing through piddly armies with this don't f with me attitude. He had a majestic horse, and he was basically one of the biggest threats in all of freaking all of China.
Okay. So with that, my next question to you, Glenn, before I go to Jet Sparks, can you think of an example of a one-sided battle scene that doesn't work?
I gotta go Pokemon on this one.
Okay.
One thing I've seen it happen with, like, people are like, "Oh, I could beat this with like a level 1 Bulbasaur or something like that." If you go unprepared, that's definitely one sided, especially when it comes to either gym leaders, Elite Four, Frontier Brains, even the champion. You go to it. One thing you got to know about keeping a battle one sided: be prepared, because if you're unprepared, that's definitely one sided.
Right. But it's also important to note too that, especially with video games, as you've been talking, that you directly control the main character's actions, and so whatever battle scene that we're talking about in video games can be as one-sided or as even, honestly, as you make it, what either due to the difficulty you're playing it on, to the amount that you've grinded up levels, to a number of different things, what your gear is. So it's a little bit different. So it's a little bit different having one-sided fights in video games than it is. Sorry, Virginia just messaged me something. Than it is in cinema, where it's all on the writers. And so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and again turn to Jet Sparks. Can you give me an example, in your opinion, Jet Sparks, of a one-sided battle scene that works and one that doesn't work?
That's a little hard to say, because I know I can take a look at through any sort of like Final Battle and Power Rangers, but one of them is probably Lothar from Power Rangers Ninja Storm. I mean, he kind of conveyed a bit of menace at the very start of the season, where literally he did, like, all of him and his forces pretty much destroyed the Wind Ninja Academy and all the other ninja academies on Earth. And apparently, he actually even used some big tornado to just suck the whole school up into the sky. But throughout the story, he's really been kind of like in the background comedic, and he doesn't really convey that same type of dangerous menace until like the very end of the season. And once he actually has one of the Rangers' powers, aka the 6 Rangers samurai amulet that essentially is dark and evil, essentially, but it was used as a force for good. He literally was able to walk through the Rangers and hit them enough to pretty much depower them. And another good example is, well, I couldn't really. No, this other example is like eventually, just like where I say you can use some unconventional, or somehow you could say a sort of Deus Ex Machina kind of like helps the Rangers in a way, is dealing with the Vengeance virus. Once he's dealt with too many defeats, he eventually decides, yeah, I cannot stand having the Rangers beat me all the time, so I'm going to download myself into a mobile form of myself, and I literally am going to destroy the Rangers with my own two hands. And yeah, once they venture outside the dome to hopefully investigate Ranger Black's lost memories that they assume are his, and Vengeance ambushes them on the road ahead. And yeah, he pretty much is able to walk through all of them. Heck, he even has like powerful bolts that essentially make his grinder foot soldiers more stronger, and literally, yeah, the Rangers are no match for a bit, and they have to retreat. So yeah, there are some things in that, and even then there's there's always those scenes where, yeah, the Rangers are kind of helpless, and the villains are way too powerful, like with also another one of Vengeance's generals named Shifter, where after like there's some infighting where one of the other like generals sabotages his plans, he says he's going to go out on his own and basically try to take over Corinth and destroy the Rangers himself. And sure, he proves to be pretty formidable once he uses his own attack bot, or uses like a remnant piece of it to upgrade himself. And there you go with that. But there always are those kind of things where, yeah, you really just don't know where this sudden increase in power came from. I mean, I understand that, yeah, you got to have a villain that is strong, but if you make him so strong that he can just walk through if he somehow can suddenly walk through all the heroes, it's different. I mean, if you already set up that he's a dangerous person, the most formidable enemy, but if you don't already set that up, it's not going to be very good. But like I said, I can't think of any other examples outside of Power Rangers where fights can be often one-sided.
And that's fine. I mean, like I said, for me, an example of a one-sided battle scene that works is the hallway scene from Rogue One, where Vader is just mowing down through the rebel troops in the ship. And just as a side note, it's the last time that a lightsaber is actually taken seriously in Star Wars. But oh, here's a good one too. Blazerhawk Darren. By the way, hello to Brandon Looney Tunes fan. Thanks for joining. But Blazerhawk Darren says, good example of a one-sided battle, God defeating the Egyptians at the Red Sea. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know that I would count that quite as a battle, because the Israelites were too concerned with getting to the other side of the Red Sea to instead of just outright clashing swords with the Egyptians. But real quick, I just got your message, Jet Sparks. Is there anything final you want to say on this topic before you go?
Well, yes. I mean, battle scenes are always a good thing. And I mean, especially if it's a final battle, it has to be very climactic. It has to be stylish, but also I know there always has to be some bit of narrative tension in there where the heroes seem like they're fighting hard, or they're near close to defeat. But if it really just shows where it's just one side favors the other, it's not going to be as exciting or entertaining to watch or read.
Okay. Glenn, is everything okay? You dropped out there.
I hit the wrong button.
Oh, gotcha. And then last question, Jet Sparks, kind of the other question we're talking about. Why do we root for one side of each battle?
Well, again, the whole thing is if we are really rooting for the people who are the antagonists, the people we follow throughout the journey or any story in fiction, if the villains have truly done something horrible to warrant the heroes fighting back and being determined to stop them, like in instance, the Harvesters is again, the Harvesters are out to destroy and annihilate to annihilate humanity. If they've wiped out all of our major cities, they're gonna send even if they defeat the city destroyers, that the danger is not over yet. They're still gonna have to contend with the millions of ground troops that they were planning to send down to Earth to mop up. So that would have been that probably would have been equally as dangerous. And the same thing applies to Top Gun Maverick. In the case of the buildup in that story, we already know of the final battle, and that final battle scene is, of course, we already know the characters were training to conduct this mission, but when they're trying to escape, once they've already hit their target, Rooster runs out of flares, and of course Maverick takes one of the missiles for him just so he can escape. But while the other like fighters head back to the carrier, Rooster decides to stay behind and sit and try to save Maverick, but he also too gets shot down, and they have to mad dash to get out of enemy territory to get back to the carrier. And of course, they're intercepted by the two Sukhois that pursue them, and that was the main danger that they were going to face throughout, which was part of the parameters of their mission. And even though that one thing that is stated, it's not about the plane, it's the pilot. And again, Maverick is one of the best pilots in the Navy. And obviously, even if they were using a lower tech plane, they held their own against the most advanced 5th generation fighters. And there you go with that. And there was a lot of tension that they were going to die.
Yeah. And it was an absolutely amazing scene that called back to, of course, the death of Goose.
Yes.
Well, again, JetSparks, thank you for joining us. I know you got somewhere to be. I hope you're able to join us for next week's open panel discussion. I think next week's is going to be how actual world history influences our entertainment.
Yeah. All right. But thank you for having me on, Paul. I mean, if anyone else is interested in what I'm going to be on, I'm going to be on Potato Revan's channel talking about that ID Discovery documentary, Quiet on Set, the dark side of kids TV. So it's hoping to be a very interesting discussion.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, JetSparks, anytime you want to get your butt kicked in Mario Kart, you know where to find me.
Same here, dude.
I'll let you know. Yeah. And anytime anytime you guys want to face me and my friends on the subpar arena, you let me know too.
Absolutely, dude. All right. Well, take care.
Out.
And yes, Blazerhawk Darren, put the link to JetSparks channel. If you guys are not subscribed, go ahead and do that. So I did add some more bullet points while he was talking about that, Glenn. And so we'll go ahead and go to the next one here. The battle has to conform to some form of logic. Because if battles are literally just doing whatever the heck they want without giving a thought to how things actually would work in the setting that they're in, the battle doesn't work. And of course, the number one example that I can think of for this one is the opening battle sequence in The Last Jedi with those giant bomber ships. So you know which ones I'm talking about, right?
Vaguely, but yeah.
Okay, so in The Last Jedi, and I'm sorry for those that don't like this movie, I'm about to bring up a bad memory. So I know. So of course, Poe decides that he wants to pick a fight with a dreadnought ship, saying, quote, "It's a fleet killer," when the right thing to do would have been just get out of there and retreat and fight another day. But he decides not only to attack the Dreadnought himself in admittedly a cool looking scene. He brings his whole squad with him, including like 9 giant bomber ships that are really slow moving, that have to basically be escorted over the top of this Dreadnought to drop their bombs. And a lot of people have made fun of this scene over the years.
Be almost like him saying, "Oh, let me grab an army," not knowing what the hell am I going to do in that.
Oh, it gets better. It gets better. So not only are these tanker ships moving really slow in space, mind you, they are very, very fragile, where a stray TIE fighter that had gotten shot down can crash through 3 of them, and the 3 of them go up like kindling.
Damn.
And of course, not only basically all of the bombers get destroyed by the end of the battle. Only one of them actually makes it to their objective and is able to drop its payload. But the other thing that people make fun of in this is that this is a battle that is set in space, and yet the bombs are dropping, like literally dropping down as if there's gravity. And we don't see, by the way, any sort of mechanism outright pushing them down, exerting any form of force upon them. They're just being released and they're dropping. And so that to me is an example of a battle that just does not conform to not just logic, but physics. Because, of course, in space, there's 0 gravity. So you can move at pretty much any speed that you want. But at the same time, you're going to keep moving at that speed unless some other force exerts itself upon you to either change your direction or slow you down. So,
exactly.
So what about you, Glenn? What, in your opinion, is a battle scene that throws logic out the window and doesn't work?
I'd have to say if you go the going guns blazing type people, going in not knowing what the hell's going to happen, or going in just saying, "Oh, I'm going to see what I can do," and I don't care what the hell happens, and then next thing you know, boom, dead.
Now,
basically,
I do want to mention this real quick. Those sorts of moments can work, because it sounds, if you're if you are talking about what I think you're talking about, of course, if I'm wrong, correct me, but it sounds like what you're talking about is a last stand. Is that correct?
Kind of.
Okay. Because those, hey, what do we have to lose sort of moments, those do work, but you got to consider also that the people that are going into that last stand, that last ride or die moment, have indeed considered the risk and know that it's basically a suicide mission, but they're choosing to go anyways because they're standing on what they believe in. But if they're
high risk, high reward.
Exactly. But if they're just doing what you're doing, where they're just taking an unnecessary risk just because wee-hoo! And yeah, that's stupid.
That is. I mean, it'd be like if Cody Rhodes didn't have a plan to defeat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40, or if that whole battle just didn't have any logic to it. The whole build up to it didn't make any sense.
That's a good example. I hesitated to bring up any wrestling here, even though I do think kind of in a professional wrestling way when it comes to storytelling. I hesitated that because because we're already stretching battle scenes thin by having like one-on-one lightsaber duels. So do wrestling matches count?
Probably not.
Let's say gray area, but
it's gray area.
Your point still holds. Cody went in to WrestleMania 40 both nights with a plan. And I'm sure on night 2, he probably did say something to all of the people that interfered for him. You know, Seth Rollins. I know we know he said something to Seth Rollins because they had talked about it in, of course, the Monday Night Raws leading up to it. He probably said something to John Cena. He probably said something to Jey Uso, and he probably said something to The Undertaker, being like, "Hey, if crap's going down for me, give me a hand." As I'm sure Roman said something to the Bloodline, "Hey, if crap's going wrong for me, give me a hand."
Yeah, like with Solo Sikoa, Jimmy Uso, even The Rock.
Mm-hmm. So my next bullet point that we're going to go ahead and go into now is the fight has to have consequences. Like there has and this is mostly looking at the aftermath of the battle. There has to be some form of lasting effect that is felt from this battle, because if nothing changes after the battle's done, then what was the point of it, right?
Let me give you an example on that. Everybody knows Ash Ketchum's journey to becoming a Pokemon master. And we've known time in and time out, he's had battles where he's won. He's had battles where he's lost. In the battle between him and Professor Kukui and Pokemon Sun and Moon, excuse you,
I'm good.
the basically to win, if he won, he was the champion of the league. He never really accomplished that until Sun and Moon.
Right.
The consequences. The consequences could also mean what happens if you lose, or the consequences if you win. Like, for example, the Elite Four and Champion.
Mm-hmm.
You beat the Elite Four, you go to the Champion, you win the champion, you win against the champion, you beat the league. You either drop to any of the Elite Four or the champion, back to square one. You have to go.
Why, when you said the word elite, was I thinking about Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks?
Wrong Elite. Wrong Elite, silly. The Elite Four. And like I was saying, in any of the leagues, including Scarlet and Violet, you beat your Elite Four, you beat your champion, you get the league. Drop to any of them, and you're back to square one.
I believe it. By the way, Virginia's been messaging me in the background. I know she's watching. I just got to play this for her. This might be a bit loud, but it's worth it.
Sounds like a robotic stomach.
It's one of her least favorite sounds from the soundboard. Oh, also, Trevor. Hoopa, hoopa, hoopa. I got a reaction.
I hate you.
Well, I hate you too, Glenn.
Wait a second. I was just reading the freaking message, smartass. Smartass.
Thank you for being a good sport with that. But anyways, I have completely thrown myself off track here. But yeah, the fight like I said, the fight has to have consequences. For example, the consequences. Look at the Battle of Hoth, for example, in Empire Strikes Back.
Episode 5.
The Rebel Alliance absolutely got its butt handed to it, to the point that they had to go into hiding and find a new base. And technically they never did find another base, at least that we know of, until we see that one giant ship, that one giant fleet in Return of the Jedi. But not only that, but Han Solo and Leia had to go into hiding, and eventually, of course, they found their way to Cloud City. Luke, I mean, this really wasn't a consequence of the battle, but Luke ended up having to leave the rebellion to, of course, go find Yoda. Or here's a good one. a great example of consequences in a battle from the same movie, Luke losing one of his hands to Vader.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so battles, again, there has to be some form of after effect to these battles. Otherwise, again, what was the point of having them?
My Hero Academia.
Okay.
All Might versus All for One. Battle just blows. I mean, it blows your mind. I mean, Deku's and everyone's rooting for All Might, and he is just getting his ass kicked. But he held his own against All for One. Consequences, however, he did pass his quirk to Deku due to a strand of his hair that he gave him.
Right.
And the consequences for that, he sustained so much damage. It was like last ditch effort to the point where he basically, I can't take any more damage. I'm retiring. You're next in line for all. You're next in line for the quirk known as One for All, because it originated from Nana Shimura to Toshin Oriagi, which is All Might, to Izuku Midoriya, Deku, and if they have a, God forbid, they say branch off from that for Deku may hand down the quirk to said person.
You never know. Which, by the way, shout out to Brandon, the anime guy, who's been covering that stuff.
And another thing, where it says we're talking about battle scenes, how about the training to get to the battle? When Deku was, when everybody from Class 1A was and beyond was assigned expert teachers like Gran Torino.
I believe his name was
Eraserhead.
Mm-hmm.
Eraserhead, Mr. Aizawa, Shota Aizawa, for all of those who want to know his real name. Deku, Izuku Midoriya, was assigned Gran Torino, the man who trained Toshinori Yagi, a.k.a. All Might.
Right.
Basically, the Master Yoda to Luke Skywalker.
And you definitely get Yoda vibes from him.
Mm-hmm. Even though his quirk is jet, little old man just going supremely fast. And we all know everybody, since they were training, they weren't able to take down many of the villains, even if they were training, they were still not able to take down many of the villains until later on in the series. Spoilers who haven't seen it.
Okay.
But
real quick, we had another guest come in here. Let me just real quick talk to him in the chat. Keep going, Glenn.
That's also like Tenya Ida and Genium. His fight with the hero killer Stain had major league consequences because it was his brother that almost got killed by the hero killer, and he basically lashed out a dose of revenge to take down Stain with the help of Deku, of course. But if I'm wrong, if I projecting that wrong, I'm very sorry. Another Pokemon logic. Let's see. What would be another Pokemon logic that? Never mind. All right.
Let's see. Another example for me of consequences after a battle is seeing what happened to Isengard in Return of the King, just seeing the whole property just getting flooded, and of course in the extended edition, seeing Sauron get killed by Grima Wormtongue on top of the tower, and he falls.
I just remembered what I was going to say. Do you remember that DreamWorks video movie known as Ants?
Ants?
Yes.
It's been a minute since I've seen that one, but yes.
Well, consequences. The battle between the ants and the termite army. Many casualties, and even with Z trading the place of Weaver, so Weaver could do Z's job, and Z can experience what Weaver's got to go through. That could easily have traumatized Z, because at the end of the fight, he goes and tries to find Barbados, and turns out all that's left of Barbados is his head.
I'm having a hard time picturing what you're saying, man. Like I said, it's been a long time, like 20 plus years since I've seen that movie. Maybe
I'm sorry for raging you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just I guess I got to rewatch all these movies. Like, I've been thinking about doing like a DreamWorks retrospective or something, because I know it's been forever since I've seen Shrek, and I've made some pretty bold claims around Virginia, saying that Shrek is like one of the most overrated movies.
Let's see, another battle that has some major league consequences.
And then the last bullet point that I want to bring on here. That got
Shrek. Okay, we're getting off topic. Let's get to the bullet point, please.
Yes, the last bullet point we're going to talk about, and JetSpark's already addressed this one, but we're going to keep this one. Why do we root for one side?
I got to bring up football for this one. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. My mom's a Dallas Cowboys fan. We root for one side during any schedule. NFL, NCAA, well, any sports in general. We root for that side because that's either A, they're our favorite team, like I said, Philadelphia Eagles for me, or Iowa Hawkeyes, or we root for one side because we despise the other team. It's simple as that. Well, that's at least how I think of it for football fans. But why do you think why we root for one side to your point of view, Paul?
Say again?
Why do you think we root for one side to your point of view?
Why do you think we root for one side? It's honestly just whoever's point of view the story is. And who's fighting, I guess, at least according to the storyteller, for the most just cause.
I mean, for all we know, it could be just good versus evil. It could be Ash versus Gary from Pokemon. It could be the White Witch's army versus the denizens of Narnia.
Ooh, that's a good one right there.
It could be it's just basically who versus who, and you can root for what it kind of also gets up to person's choice, especially when it comes to like football or something like that. They have their choice, but
yeah, I mean, sports, though, to be fair, that's one thing. And that's just simply, who's your favorite team? And a lot of times that's determined by where you live, because obviously you're going to cheer for the team that's from your town. But when it comes to a battle scene on the screen, it's basically just whose point of view have you been following this whole time? Like, say for example, the roles. Don't forget to mute yourself, Glenn. Thank you. Say for example, you're looking at the Lord of the Rings story from Sauron's point of view, and you're following his point of view, and the story is told from with him in mind. And there it says, I'm a Trailblazers fan, I hate the Lakers. And basically, Sauron, from his point of view, is the hero. And he's going to tell the story as if he was the hero, and he's going to give you reasons to root for him as opposed to everyone else in Middle-earth. But that's not what happened. We are following, of course, the free people of Middle-earth and different aspects of their point of view, be it Frodo and Sam, Gandalf, the three hunters, etc., etc. And so naturally, we want to see them succeed. So really, as far as just who it is that you root for, it's who you spend the most time with, and getting to know why they do what they do. Now, granted, of course, people can deceive you. Like, for example, Hans from Frozen. He started out as just this prince, of course, that instantly fell in love with Anna. But by the end of the movie, he turns out to be a big scumbag. When earlier he was helping Arendelle, like, cope with the unnatural cold, passing out blankets and such, and we wanted to see him do good things, only for him to turn around and be evil. Real quick, Old Man says, you are too soft, turn up. Okay, how about that? But yeah, like I said, just whose side have you spent the most time with, and whose side have you heard from their point of view the most? That's pretty much, at least to me, the long and the short of it as to why we root for one side. So I think with that, guys, we are going to go ahead and... Oh, here's one. Nate... Virginia says, I believe Nate said it the other day. History is written by the victors. It also applies here in terms of whose side you believe in. Glenn, what do you think about that?
That is true. That is true, is whose side you believe in, because if, say, one side... how do I want to put this? Probably due to the fact that they may have like some sort of benefactor to possibly know, like, who I think of. Lost track of thought there.
It's all right, dude. It happens to the best of us. Well, I tell you what, dude, we're going to go ahead and close it down for the night. So is there anything final that you want to say on this whole topic?
You did have we do have good points with battle scenes, like consequences lead up to and after the battle. The cool factor, definitely. I agree on that one. And but other than that, that's all I have to say.
Okay. So in closing, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. And I'm going to ask those of you guys that are watching now, and those that happen to watch this after the air date has finished, go into the comments as you're watching this and put your own battle scenes in there and why you think they are good and why you would root for one particular side of that battle scene. And I'd like to see what it is that you guys have to say. But in the meantime, we are going to go ahead and end it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will talk to you guys later. The Force is family.